This morning we are going to work on a Antler broom. How's that? And it's more like a hearth broom, but that's what we're going to be doing today. So I've got my jerk strings sitting here waiting on me. Jerk strings. I've got some kind of a knife or an X-Acto or scissors, whichever works better for you. And I've got my broom corn that's been soaking. So I'm going to pull out, I think about 12 pieces. And remember, I want my pretty ones, my kind of fat and ugly ones to the inside, and my pretty thin ones to the outside. So I'm just going to take a minute here and pick some out. And then we'll get going. And I'm going to start with those thick ones. Remember, when you soak them, it needs to soak for at least a half hour, 45 minutes, and it needs to be in warm water so they get good and supple. Okay, so I'm going to start with my knot, and I've got a leftover a knot here, so let me cut that off. And so the first thing you want to do is just an overhand knot to keep it from fraying out and also from slipping. Just an overhand knot, and then you want that knot that slides on the long piece, right? So once again, take it, put it over 3 fingers where it intersects, hold it, put it upside down, and then grab through the center of that hoop and pull that long string up. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put this over my antler and tighten this up as much as I can. Sometimes it'll snug all the way up to the knot, and other times no. So what I'll do is this. I'll just make sure that I'm wrapping over the top of that string for about 3 rows. And then I don't really need that length in there anymore, so I'm just going to cut that off. It's pretty snug. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to put in my fat uglies. How's that? I want to put them underneath the string. And remember, these are going to get trimmed back. So you don't really have to worry about it being an even or an odd number. I give it a crease. If you look at this one, it kind of has a, well, I guess it's, sometimes I'll have like 2, this one does. They have like 2, they have a, like a shell. I don't want to say shell, not really a shell, kind of an outer covering that needs to come off. Now this one might not work because it didn't get real wet. Yep. See, if it's not wet, it's just going to pop like popcorn. So we'll put that aside for another use and grab some more of these guys that aren't real dynamically pretty. Okay, so it doesn't matter at this point if it's over or under, or I'm sorry, odd or even. All we're doing is just putting a wrap around it. I think I've just gotten so used to adding 2 at a time I do it, but you don't have to do it that way. You can do it 1 at a time. So I can probably stick about 1 more guy in here, I think. So, and then I'm going to wrap for 3. You can see my starting point there. And I'm wrapping up. So I don't want to be on top of that string, I want to be right next to it. About 3 or 4. Okay. So then on this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add those shoulders again. So, once again, they don't have to be the pretties for the shoulders. So I'm going to take 3 for this side and 3 for this side. could put 2 if you wanted. I'm going to put 3, make it a little thicker. So 3 on this side. I'm just going to hold in there and then crease it on there good. And I'm going to come around to the other side and do the same thing. Okay, 3 on there, make sure I got them about where I want them, and then I'm going to crease it. Okay, and then I am going to wrap this for about 3 rows. Okay, so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim these guys off so I can put my pretties on top. Alright, so then I'm going to lay those nice ones in there. And this you do need to be an odd amount. So I'm going to put 1 in the beginning, and I'm going to put 2 around for each other's. And I think probably in retrospect I would have put 2 on the sides, not 3. So I'm going to end up making this broom a little bit bigger than I intended, but that's alright. The other thing you can do if you want is you could just not put the sides on, and that would make it smaller. And because you're not going to go really far up on the braid, you don't have to have super long, thin pieces, because you're just not going to go up that far on it. I'm going to spread these out just a little bit. You want them close, but you don't want them so close that when you start doing the braid, there's not enough room for them. So I could probably get maybe a couple more sets in here. Now if it was a really long broom handle or, you know, piece of driftwood or whatever that was really long that you're really wanting to make a statement by doing that braid all up it, that's one thing. So it looks like I can do about 2 more. But because this isn't really not going to take that much braid, I don't have to worry about it. Alright. So I'm going to go around 3, tightening that up. And I'm going to start doing my braid. So I'm back here at the beginning. And remember, you want to tilt that down. Underneath the string and then crease it. That one's a little stiff. So I'm going to do this for about, and you know, when you're making, we'll call them out of the ordinary brooms, on something cool that you found. Maybe it's a piece of driftwood. Maybe it's Grandpa's old walking stick. Or it's a piece of driftwood from something you found. Or, you know, you found a cool curly stick. It doesn't matter what it is that you're tying a broom on. They'll all work. The only thing that you need to be aware of is how thick you're making that broom and the diameter of your hand in comparison to the diameter of your handle. Now also too, and I didn't pay a lot of attention to this, but your braid or plate is only going to be as long as your shortest stem. So that means if you really want to go long on a braid, you need to kind of look at those and see that they're relatively the same length when you put them in. And I mean, see, some of that's fallen off. For me, I'm not that persnickety. It is just a broom. But just, you know, if there's something that you really want to do a lot of braid on, it's something to consider. I'm being careful to make sure that I'm digging one underneath here if it needs it. So I keep my weave on. If I had an even number of these guys, then I couldn't do a continuous weave. It would stack up. And that would be a lesson for another class. So I've got, you know, I'm looking at this and thinking I can probably go up to about there with that braid. So and the real important thing is to pull that string over every time before you crease. Then crease. And the more you do that, the tighter this gets. And then the more braid you get. And to me, it's a prettier look. I mean, you want it to sort of look like corn on a cob is what it always reminds me of. All right, I'm gonna call that good, I think, as I come around and find my start. And there's my beginning. So I'm gonna finish this off right here. I'm gonna grab my jerk string, lay it in there. I'm right-handed, which means the knot goes on the right-hand side. Stick that underneath there. And then I'm gonna wrap for about 3 to 4. Oops, slid on me. I want to keep that flat underneath there. I think I'm going to pull that up just a little bit. Make sure I'm keeping it good and tight. Okay, and then I'm going to hold that pressure with my thumb, come down here and cut that string. Switch it. Take that cut end of the string and put it through that loop. Still holding on to the pressure. I'm going to come over here on the knot side and pull it through. And then I want to make sure that's good and tight. So I'm going to wrap it around that and then cut away from me. Okay, so now I want to trim this stuff off. Best way I've found is to press it and pull back on that broom corn, on the stem of it. That seems to work the best for me, unless I'm using a knife because I don't have any broomstick on it. And I've seen other people do that where they just cut it with that too, but this is kind of my method. And it works for me most of the time. So once we get this done, I'm going to stick this in a vise and I'm going to flatten it out like a shaker broom since it's got shoulders on it, so that makes it more like a hearth broom. Alright, so this stuff I'll clean up later. When it dries, it'll just pop right off too. So I am going to go ahead and get my vise, and like I said, this is a little bit thicker than I would have thought. My original one, I didn't put shoulders on it. I just went around once and flattened it out. You can either do that or put shoulders on it. If you do decide to put shoulders on it, then that's going to be more, of course, more broom corn, and especially going around the outside. So it'll be a bigger broom. And that took me about a pound of broom corn to make that. So if you decide to go with the shoulders, it's going to take up more broom corn. If you decide just to go around it like a cobweb broom, it'll be less. So let me get that vise and I'll show you what to do next. Alright, so I have flattened down my broom, put it in the vise, and I decided that I wanted mine narrow. You can widen it out if you want, but I just tend to go for more narrow things. So I've got my wax linen, and I have taken about let's say about 3 yards, and I've looped it. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a lark's head and go around it twice. I'll show you how I do this again. Lark's head, 2 fingers, point them down, put them together, and there you go. Okay, so being aware that I have an antler to about right there, I want to come down a little bit farther so that I can stitch this. So I'm going to go around this a couple times, and then I'm going to put it through that loop. It's sitting there waiting on me. And then with the cut ends, I'll tighten that up till it's over to the side. I'm going to thread through my needle. I just bend it over and stick it through there. So down we go. And on this first stitch, what I try to do is come back up so I can kind of cover that knot. You don't have to. It's just something that I do. Alright, so I'm going to cover that up, and then I'm going to go diagonally through the broom, and then I'm going to look back here and see where I'm at. So I'm going to do like, I don't know, let's say 1/4 inch stitches. Okay, and then I'll come straight across from it, making sure that I've got these tightened up. Straight across from it and diagonally through it a little bit so that I can come up on this stitch. Alright, let me show you this a couple more times. And then I'll do another row of the same stitching here. Checking to see where I'm at. And I want that to be a straight stitch. And then I'm going to diagonally come through here and see where I want to be on this side. I'm always checking my stitching because sometimes it's real easy for these two to get off the same tension. So I'll go back and check each one and make sure that it's tight before I go on. Okay. So now I'm back to the front. And remember, I want to be straight across. And then I'm going to go back here and look. And grab it about right there. Okay. Making sure that, once again, they're both tight. I'm going to finish this row and show you how how I finish the stitching. And then, like I said, you can do, and why don't you do more than this, but I usually do at least 2 rows of stitching. And if you wanted to do 3, that would be good. And if you want to do more than that, that's great too. It's just how much you want to stitch. But I think you definitely need at least 2 rows of stitching. And then after that, it's just art on broom. How's that? It's not necessary, it's more like an embellishment. And that's cool too. So I'm coming across, I'm coming through. And I'm probably going to do about 2 or 3 more stitches on this, I think. Alright, I'm going to call this my last stitch. And then what I want to do is go diagonally through the broom. Grab it and pull it through. Tuck that back down in there and then cut it. Or pull that right off. Either or. We'll just pull it off. I don't like the way that looks. Alright, and then cut it off. So I'm going to do that 1 to 2 more times. Make sure that you're cutting away from yourself, and that is what your broom is going to look like. So I would just smooth this down a little bit more and go at least 2 fingers in between the rows. And there you got it. An antler broom. People talk about that one. Alright, so next month is the double broom, or, you know, usually you would do this on the double broom like on a piece of wood that has a Y in it. But I didn't think I could find that many pieces of wood for you guys, so we're going to do it on an antler. But you'll understand the basics on it, and that way when you're out tramping in the woods and you see a Y-shaped stick, you think, ah, I need that for my next wedding broom project. So remember, you can tie a broom on just about anything. The only thing that you're concerned about is the diameter of the stick, per se. Okay? So we'll see you next month.